Well, hey there, guys. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to this installment of Open Mic, the show where the mic is open, the floor, as they would say, is yours. What do you want to talk about? That's what we're here to discuss. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. Good to have you guys here. And this is a thing. We did an open mic yesterday, but for those of you who may not have seen yesterday's open mic, when we came back from our second commercial break and I went to refresh the live questions that you guys have sent in, it wasn't loading. So we're going to start off the live questions part of the show today by getting through the last few questions that people sent in on yesterday's show. But then we're going to take a whole new batch of questions from you guys. If you guys have a thought, theory, question, opinion, observation that you'd like for me to address, as long as I consider it appropriate to be addressed on the show, go ahead and use the super chat feature and send it on in. The super chats are currently open. I will let you guys know when I'm turning them off. And, hello, Jorge, greetings from Portugal. Hello from Portugal, everybody. And hello to everybody who's already here. Sean, Risky Plants, Mark W., Seppel, Sir Maelstrom, Brandon, Josh, everybody who's here. Welcome to the show. We're glad to have you guys here. All right. As normal, as we get ready to watch House of the Dragon later. By the way, show of hands, who else is watching House of the Dragon later? 2.5 hours from now, I believe. Yes, sir. 2.5 hours from now, new episode of House of the Dragon. I cannot believe how good this show has been this week. Very excited about that. But there is something I wanted to talk about here, because, normally on Open Mic, we start off the show by me talking about a topic that I picked out just for a few minutes, right? And I really thought we should talk about this one, because I can't believe how this really became an issue. And it revolves around the hot potato issue that is always a big stuff around fandom, which is spoilers. And spoilers are a very tricky thing because everybody has a slightly different definition of what a spoiler is or is not, right? Everybody has a different interpretation. To somebody like me, who is very far on one end, like I'm kind of on an extreme end, but to me, a spoiler is only a spoiler if it fundamentally changes my entire viewing of that film. Like if I find out a piece of information that fundamentally changes the way I saw the entire film as I was watching it, that to me is a spoiler. So the example I use is Sixth Sense, right? If I knew going into it that Bruce Willis was dead the whole time, that would fundamentally change the way I would have watched the whole movie. Like, your whole viewing experience of that movie is different and changed if you find that out before watching it. To me, that's a spoiler. Or another film I like to use is The Usual Suspects. Finding out who Kaiser Soze is, if you knew that going into the movie, it fundamentally changes the way your entire viewing experience of the movie is, right? Finding out Dirk Benedict, who of course played Starbuck in the original 1970s, 1980s Battlestar Galactica, and who more famously played Face in the A-Team, finding out Dirk Benedict does a quick cameo in the Liam Neeson Bradley Cooper A-Team movie does not fundamentally change the way I saw the whole movie. Yeah, it was a quick little surprise, but finding that out didn't change the way I saw the movie. So to me, that's not a spoiler. But there is the complete opposite end of the spectrum, right? There are some people who believe finding out anything about a movie coming out is a spoiler. I mean, anything. Like, I kid you not, like, had a conversation with somebody once where I was like telling them, well, like, there's a scene in the movie where these two characters are having dinner. And like, I didn't want to know that. It's a spoiler. Like, what do you mean spoiler? I'm not telling you anything important about the movie. I'm just telling you, like, there's this one part in the movie where the two characters are having dinner. I don't want to know anything. So, like, to them, that's a spoiler. And since movie fans can't get on the same page about what is a spoiler and what is not, there's always going to be friction. Always going to be friction. And that kind of came up this week when in a new Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, it got released, it got revealed in the trailer put out by the studio that Daphne Keane is returning as X-23. So that was put right in the trailer. And that brings up two questions. What is or is not a spoiler in trailers? Okay. If anything is in a trailer, should it be considered a spoiler at all? If it's a part of the marketing and the studio puts it out, should it be considered a spoiler at all? Or are there things that can be in a studio release trailer that some would consider a spoiler? So that's question number one. But question number two, and I want us to address both of these questions today. Question number two hits a little bit more to home because this is what I've kind of been dealing with on the YouTube channel the last couple of days, is if something is in a publicly, globally released trailer, whether or not it was spoilery for the studio to put it in the trailer, that's question number one. But question number two is, if it is in the trailer, and it is globally, publicly now common knowledge and available information to the world, should people on blogs and podcasts and YouTube channels like mine be free to openly discuss them and have that information in the title of a blog post or of a YouTube video or in a thumbnail? So, two different questions. One is, can anything in a trailer even be considered a spoiler? And then question number two, if it is in a trailer, regardless of whether it should have been in the trailer or not, is it now fair and open game for people to talk about openly? And I want us to go over those two questions, okay? So let's start with the question number one. If something is in a movie trailer, should it be considered a spoiler at all? Now, as just an individual movie fan, I cannot give a definitive yes or no answer to that. I will only tell you my personal point of view, okay? Sir Malcolm had a good idea. I'll make a poll about that and post it in just a second, but I want to go over the conversation here first. You see, to me, if the studio puts something in a public piece of marketing, because every piece of marketing, news releases, posters, TV spots, trailers, all these things contain information about the film, right? All of them do. Posters contain information about a film. TV spots contain information about a film. Trailers contain information about a film. So when a studio puts out a piece of marketing that contains information about a film, and all of them do contain information about a film, does it then become automatically excluded from being considered a spoiler? I say yes. Let me run an example by you. In Thor Ragnarok, actually, let me see if I can find this. I'm not sure I'll be able to. Hold a second. Thor Ragnarok poster. I'm going to see if I can just find this quickly and bring it up on the screen here. But many of you guys will remember that in Thor Ragnarok, there's a pretty great poster. I actually really love the Thor Ragnarok poster. But in the poster, there is a ton of information in this poster. Okay? A ton of it. We got hobo-looking Odin down in the bottom right corner. We've got Hulk. We got Gladiator Hulk at the top. We find out that Cate Blanchett is in the movie playing Hela, and we see the design of her character. We see that Idris Elba is here. And also, who is that? I can't even tell who that one person is. But we got Idris Elba is down there. We've got, there's this poster alone has a lot of information in it. And to anybody who was like, I don't want to know anything. I love the Thor movies. I don't want to know anything about Thor Ragnarok before going to see it. Here's my question. Is this poster a spoiler? Because we find out that Cate Blanchett's in it. We see hobo-looking Odin, which gives us a little bit of information. We see that Hulk is in the movie, right? The movie's not called Thor and Hulk. It's called Thor Ragnarok, and now you know Hulk's in it. Oh, and by the way, now you know Hulk's the Gladiator. So, honest question. Is this poster a spoiler? It contains information about the movie that you may not have known about the movie going into it. So is it a spoiler? To me, obviously the answer is no. Because it's part of the thing that the film wants you to know about. There's going to be things that the studio decide they want the audience to know about. And if the studio decides that they want the audience to know about it, to me, it is automatically then not a spoiler. How many of you guys were old enough to be around? Even I was really young at the time, so I don't know how many of you guys were, but how many of you guys are old enough that you were around when the trailers for Return of the Jedi came out? Any of you guys? And some of you guys might know what I'm about to bring up. But before Return of the Jedi came out, the trailer started going around. And there's a moment in the Return of the Jedi trailer that sent everybody into an absolute frenzy. And that was, there's a quick cut to some elevator doors, you know, the turbo lift doors, and then the doors open, whoosh, and behind the doors was Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker standing together. Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader standing together. And that made everybody go nuts. Everybody went insane. Like, what can this mean, right? But today, if that were to come out today, if Return of the Jedi was just coming out now today, and they put that in the trailer, people going, spoiler! But again, because here's the thing, and this isn't hyperbole, I'm being dead serious here. Then it becomes a question, well, who are you or I to decide then what information is or isn't a spoiler? I mean, again, in that Thor Ragnarok poster, once again, we see Hobo Odin there. So we like something bad, like Hobo Odin. Oh no, what's going on with Odin, right? Okay. So then who are you or I to decide what information in a piece of marketing should be a spoiler and what shouldn't? Like, you can't say, well, showing that Daphne Keane is in the movie is a spoiler. Well, then why is showing that Pyro in the trailer, why isn't that a spoiler? Like, when they showed Pyro in the first trailer of Deadpool Wolverine, nobody said spoiler. And rightfully so. We shouldn't say spoiler. It's like, cool, they're going to be bringing back some of the OG characters. Awesome, right? So Pyro's in the trailer, and everybody said, awesome. Nobody said spoiler. I contend to you that showing X-23 Daphne Keane is no fucking different. It's no different. But it was a piece of information that the studio said, yeah, we want the audience to know about this in coming into the movie theater. So why is Pyro being in there? Oh, awesome. But showing that X-23 is there, oh no, spoiler. Again, listen, if the studios didn't put it into a trailer and somebody just came out and told us that that was happening, yeah, that would be a spoiler, but this is in a trailer. So here's what I contend. If you really want movie marketing to not give any information away, this is what every movie poster will have to be. That's it. That's your movie poster. Can't be anything else. You can't show a picture of Deadpool. Well, now we know he has the same costume as before, because some people will think that's a spoiler. If you really want marketing that nobody will consider has a spoiler in it, this right here is what every movie poster will have to be. Gray background, typed out lettering, Deadpool 3, July 26, 2024, only in theaters. Thank you. It's like ordering soup from the soup Nazi. Tomato bisque, low salt, no bread. No soup for you. No spoilers for you. No poster for you. I mean, this is what it would have to be. Lucas in live saying is like, date spoiler. Date spoiler. Now we know when this is coming out. I didn't want to know. I wanted to be surprised when it came out. So look, it is up for debate about whether or not studios can spoil their own movies. Look, to me, if they put it in marketing, it's automatically not a spoiler and it's fine, but that's up for debate. Okay, so that's question number one. But here's the second part of the question that gets a little bit more close to home. So now it is in the trailer, okay? It's there. It's happened. Whether you think they should have put it in the trailer, whether you think they shouldn't have put it in the trailer, we're moved past that question. Now it's there. Daphne Keane in the movie, returning as her character from Logan, X-23. We know she's there. So now we move on to the second question, which is, now that it is in a trailer, now that it is put out into the public domain, now that it is information that is globally, publicly available to everyone, is it then considered a spoiler for a podcast, a blog, or a YouTube channel to do a video about it, put it in the title, and have it in its thumbnail? Remember, whether or not you think the studio should have put it into the trailer, it's now in a trailer. It is a publicly, globally piece of common information that is available to everyone worldwide. I would say this: once something is in a trailer, it is now news. Let me say that again. Once something is publicly put out by the studio, it's news. It's not a rumor anymore. It's not a piece of speculation. It's not a spoiler. It's now news. I often use this analogy, and I think it's completely applicable. There are sports fans out there who maybe are at work when a big game is going on, and they like tell their friends, "Don't tell me what the score is. I've got the show recording at home, the game recording at home. I want to get home later and I want to watch the game. Don't tell me the score. Don't tell me the score." Okay, that's fine. Doesn't want to know the score till he gets home from work so he can go and watch the game. But that guy knows it's his responsibility to avoid social media. Don't go online. Don't turn on the news. Don't do any of that stuff. Because if you don't want to know what the news is, that's nobody else's responsibility to hide it from you. That's your responsibility to avoid it. It's like, damn it, I loaded up YouTube and I'm subscribed to the ESPN YouTube channel, and right there in the thumbnail, they show that the Steelers beat the Broncos. I didn't want to know till I got... Well, then what the hell are you doing on YouTube? If you wanted to avoid news, it's not other people's responsibility to shield you from it. It's your responsibility to avoid it. Because once something is news, it is free game to talk about, discuss. Listen, Marvel announced that they were going to have a Silver Surfer, like one of the versions of Silver Surfer in the upcoming movie. Well, what? Are we not supposed to do a story about that? Marvel announces a Silver Surfer version is going to be in Fantastic Four. I didn't want to know anything. I didn't want to know anything. Then what are you doing on YouTube? Because Marvel revealing that there's going to be a Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four is no different than Marvel revealing in a global, publicly available trailer that Daphne Keane is in the film. It's now news. And I scratch my head a little bit at, like, I got 20 or 30 comments from people saying, "John, you really shouldn't be putting that in the thumbnail." It's news. Marvel told the world that Daphne Keane is returning and is going to be in Deadpool and Wolverine. Marvel just told the world that. And I'm a movie news channel. You think I shouldn't do a video with an appropriate thumbnail and title covering a news story? Because listen, I respect, believe me, I do. I respect that if you want to avoid any information about Deadpool and Wolverine, but here's the thing, my friend, then the responsibility is not on me to shield you from the news. Marvel made a public global announcement. Daphne Keene's in the movie. That's now public knowledge. That is now no longer rumor, speculation, or spoiler. That is now news. And a movie news YouTube channel is going to talk about it. IGN is going to post a story about it. So if you don't want to know anything, even publicly, globally announced news, then the responsibility is not on IGN and the responsibility is not on me to shield you from it. The responsibility is on you. And it's very hard. I'm not trying to pretend like it's easy. I'm not trying to pretend like it's not difficult. It is, but the responsibility is on yourself to keep yourself away from any place where you can hear the news. That's what I'm telling you. It's not my responsibility to not talk about the news. It's your responsibility and my responsibility, if I'm a fan that doesn't want to know anything, to stay away from YouTube, stay away from Twitter, stay away from other forms of social media until you have a chance to see the movie. And if you're going to go, but John, that's hard. Yeah, maybe, but that's your choice. That's your choice. Because here's the thing. This coming Saturday, Marvel is about to have a big Hall H panel at Comic-Con, right? They're going to announce some stuff. We don't know which stuff for sure, but they're going to announce some stuff. Question: should we not cover it? Because there might be information in there that somebody out there might not want to know. Of course not. That would be preposterous. That would be ridiculous. So to me, and this part is up for debate, but question number one, should anything in a publicly global announced piece of information from the studio even be considered a spoiler? I say no, because if you say yes, then once again, every piece of movie marketing can do nothing but look like this. That's it. Can't say anything else. Because any little piece of information, oh no, they're in a car together. Spoiler. Somebody out there might consider a spoiler. So again, this is an issue that's still up for debate. Yes. But as far as question number one goes, should anything that a studio puts into a publicly piece of information in marketing be considered a spoiler? I say no. Some people may say yes. That's fine if it's up for debate. I personally say no. But the second question, to me, it's a no-brainer. There is no debate on this. Once something is globally, publicly announced to the world by the studio by way of a news announcement, a panel discussion, a poster, a TV spot, or a trailer, once a studio makes it known to the world something, then blogs, news outlets, podcasts, and YouTube channels, it's completely fair game to openly talk about it because it is now no longer spoiler or speculation or rumor. It is now news. And if you want to avoid the news, that's on you. That's on you. But we're going to talk about the news because that's what we do. So anyway, I just thought I'd codify that and put that out there into the discussion because I listen, I'm actually absolutely totally flabbergasted that there is anybody out there that would say, hey, movie news channel, you shouldn't talk about this piece of movie news that the studio publicly and globally announced. How does that make any sense? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And yeah, listen, California puts it right. Listen, you are on your own if you want to go into a movie blindly. That's on you. The responsibility is on you. It's not up to everybody else to avoid talking about it to shelter you. I'm the same way. When I'm late to watching the newest episode of my favorite show, if I don't want to know anything about what happened, and this happens, if I don't want to know anything that's happened, I know it's my responsibility to try to avoid any discussion about it. It's not on other people to not discuss it, especially once it's publicly, globally announced news. So anyway, that's my, that is my kind of take on that. Deadpool's in the movie. Spoiler. Yeah, it's true. Anyway, guys, what do you think about it? I'm sure some of you are going to have some thoughts or opinions about that. Go ahead and fire it on into the question if you'd like to. Now, look, guys, I'm about to turn off the super chats. So I'm going to give you till the end of our sponsor spot, because we're about to take a sponsor break to thank one of the sponsors, pay some bills around here. You got to the end of the sponsor spot. If you have a thought, theory, observation, point of view that you'd like to share, go ahead and fire it into the super chats. They're going to be open for one more minute. And now, before we get to your live questions, we are going to thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of our show, our good friends over at Gametime. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Gametime. My wife Ann and I love going to events, whether they're comedy shows, concerts, an LA Lakers game. I mean, just the other night we went to go see Ronnie Chang and it was awesome. We love having these new experiences and new memories. And our sponsor Gametime makes getting tickets for concerts and events faster and easier, even if you don't buy tickets right away. Because prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to the show start time. With killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying event tickets. I couldn't believe how easy and most importantly, intuitively, the entire app works. Finding the event I was looking for couldn't have been easier. The way it lays out the map of the venue, letting you know exactly where the seats are that you're looking for, and how easy the process was to choose and buy those tickets. So don't worry if you think you're too late to get tickets to that big event you and your friend want to go to. They have last minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. So guys, take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Campea for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Campea, C-A-M-P-E-A, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And thank you to our friends at Gametime for sponsoring today's episode. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your questions. Again, we're going to start off with the remaining questions that we had from yesterday's show because we had that technical issue, had to end early. So let's get things started here. We're starting off with Ian McAllister, who says, out of the 5 House of the Dragon episodes so far, you have only done 2 open mics for them. Are you just not interested in after shows anymore? By the way, for some reason, that's not coming up completely well. Let me see if I can adjust it. I'm not getting the whole question on there. Oh my goodness. Everything's gone wrong. Hold on a second. Everything's gone wrong. This is horrible. I'm going to see if I can find out where we're supposed to be on here. Give me a second. Again, don't worry. This is not going to stop our show. We're ready to go here. Oh my gosh. Where did the question go? Give me a second here, guys. I'm sorry about this. This is one of the many drawbacks of doing a show live and by yourself. Because I'm doing this show completely by myself, so there's nobody here technically to help me out. And if something goes wrong, I got to try to fix it on the fly while you guys are being bored to death and trying to follow along. And now I've completely lost my spot. Oh, no, I found it again. Okay, good. Sorry about that, guys. I can't guarantee it won't happen again, but whatever. But for whatever reason, I'm not getting a good view of this. Let me see if I can fix this. Okay, let's try this again, shall we? Think we're good now. Ian McAllister writes, out of the 5 House of the Dragon episodes so far, you've only done 2 open mics for them. Are you just not interested in after shows anymore? No, it's not the case. Here's the reality. And this goes back to a kind of a bigger picture issue. You know, back before I made a bunch of changes to the channel about a year and a half ago, I was, no doubt, we documented this and talked about it often. I was working 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day. And, you know, I'm heading into the home stretch of my career, getting ready for retirement, all that kind of stuff. And my wife has been an absolute baller, like supporting me, encouraging me, all this kind of stuff. But she's even been getting to the point of, you're not available enough. Like you need to cut back on how many hours you're working and what you're doing. And one of those things is making sure my evenings are now open and available. And the trick is that for me to do open mics and after shows, which I have been trying to do more open mics lately, but it means one of my evenings is taken out. One of my evenings is gone. And that's difficult. So, you know, I have tried to do open mic after shows about House of the Dragon, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is, like the last week or two, my evening schedule has been pretty busy. And I'm not going to tell my wife's family, oh, that outing we were going to do as a family, I can't come now because I got to do this after show. So it's been a little bit of a struggle, but it's about me trying to balance out my work-life balance, right? I spent too many years working too many hours. And so, yeah, I am interested in them and I'm still going to try to do them when I can, but it's got to be when I have time that I can take out my evenings, you know, when I can take something out of the evening. Like for instance, yesterday, I was able to do an open mic yesterday because Ann was out with Corey. Perfect. So I have no plans with the wife. I have no plans with the family. I got nothing else I need to do. I can do an open mic. So yeah, that's right. So yes, I do want to do more of them, but I'm going to have to pick and choose my spots. And that's just part of the reality. All right. Good question though, Ian. Next up, Clay Woodley writes, Twisters is projected to make 72 million in its opening weekend. Guess what? It made 80. That's a great result, but will it be able to hold up against Deadpool next week? No, it will not be able to hold up against Deadpool. But oh my God, we're going to talk about this more on the John Campea Show tomorrow, so I don't want to go into it too much now. But oh my God, Twisters was originally projected to make somewhere between, I think it was 40 and 45 million opening weekend, which was good, which was great. 40 to 45 million opening weekend. That's way more than Fall Guy or Furiosa made. I mean, that would have been a really good opening weekend. Guys, it made 80 million. 80 million opening weekend. Unbelievable. So we're going to talk more about that on the John Campea Show tomorrow, but it's going to have a really tough time in its second week. Absolutely. All right. Jerome writes, in X-Men 97, I like the conversation between young Magneto and Charles at the bar. Mostly the quote, they even compete about who's the best victim. There were great moments. Again, like, look, my one critique about X-Men 97, and you guys have heard me say this before, because overall, I really enjoyed the show. I would stay up till midnight every night a new episode was dropping so I could watch it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But my one critique about it is that it is a very Twitter kind of show. It's a very abbreviated show. Nothing is really allowed time to breathe or truly flesh out. It has to be in exposition. Blah, 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 point one, blah, 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 point two, blah, 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 point three. Now, and so it was a very annotated kind of show, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. And even within that annotated show, they would find moments to really create these terrific scenes. And I really like that one. That one with the professor, like as they go back to their first meeting, when they first started to reveal to each other that they were both mutants. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. All right. Next up, Christopher Brickner writes, I know you dropped The Acolyte after episode 5, but where would you rank it among Star Wars shows? You at least finished the other shows, even Boba Fett. Yeah, I would actually say that Acolyte, as bad as it is, as bad as it was for the episodes that I watched, I would still say it's a little bit better than Book of Boba Fett. Now, to your point, I did finish Book of Boba Fett. But that was before I've become increasingly more protective of my time. And more importantly, I've become increasingly more protective of my fandom, like my personal fandom. And I really don't like hate watching something. And I just realized, you know, after, especially I started to suspect it after episode 4, but it really hit home for me after episode 5 of Acolyte that this is not a show that's working for me. I'm not enjoying this. I think they are doing several things massively wrong. Just basic storytelling techniques that they're getting wrong. It's not that I think they should have more Jedi. No, nothing like that. It's just that the basic fundamentals of storytelling, I thought they were blowing. And I didn't want to spend every week coming on my show and say, well, let's talk about how this episode of Acolyte sucked. Now let's come on and talk about how this episode of the Acolyte. I just didn't want to do it. And yeah, I hung in there with Obi-Wan. I didn't hate Obi-Wan. I just didn't think it was very good. So I was able to get through all of it. I hated Book of Boba Fett. I should have ditched on that. But yeah, I'm just at a place now where if it's become really, really clear to me that a show definitely is not working for me, I will just abandon it because there's other things for me to do with my time. All right. Next up, Ian McAllister writes, if they did do a movie on Aegon's conquest, how much money do you think it could make? Over under 500 million, assuming it's awesome. I'm going to say under 500 million because no one who isn't a Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon viewer is going to go watch it. Now, obviously not no one, but you know what I mean. Basically, nobody who doesn't watch. So your movie audience is automatically limited to your television audience. And not everyone in your television audience is going to go. So I would think it would be better for them to do a series on Aegon's conquest. I would personally like to see them now move forward. I want to see the Jon Snow show. I want to see what happens after the events of Game of Thrones. But whatever, if they were going to do an Aegon's Conquest, I think their best bet would be to make it a series, another Max series rather than make it a movie. That's just kind of my thought. All right. Next up, Red One Real Talk writes, regarding The Boys finale, do you think what happened with Ryan and Newman was inevitable regardless of Butcher and Mallory's interference? No, I don't. I don't think it was inevitable. I think a lot of different things could have happened with Ryan if they gave Ryan more time before giving him an ultimatum. Like we saw in the series, he was starting to shift on his own, right? He was coming to the conclusions on his own. He was becoming more and more doubtful about Homelander. That whole thing about doing that stupid Christmas spot. If you see something, say something. It did stick in my head. He was coming to that conclusion on his own. But like any kid, I feel strongly that you give a kid a little bit of direction and then kind of stay out of their way. I think most kids, not all, but I think most kids will come to right decisions. I mean, provide them the right information, all that kind of stuff. But I really think most kids, I used to work with youth groups ages ago. And I really found that, you know what, most kids are actually pretty smart. I mean, they're all unbearably stupid. All kids are unbearably stupid, but at the same time, they're also kind of smart. And I feel like in the show, if they had just left Ryan to his own devices, I think eventually he would have got to that point. So no, I don't think what happened there was inevitable. Same thing with Newman. I think if Butcher never busted in there, I think Newman had changed sides. I'm not saying she didn't deserve what happened to her because she'd done a lot of nasty stuff. She killed a lot of people, but I think she had changed sides. So no, I don't think either of those things were quote unquote inevitable. All right. Next up, Nexus writes, hey, John, long time no see. I can almost never watch these live anymore due to work. I understand that, but I'm glad to see you doing well, and I hope the crew is too. We are doing well. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I had a great weekend. Looking forward to watching House of the Dragon in just a couple of hours. So we've been doing well. Thanks for that, Nexus. Appreciate that. All right. Next up, we've got the real HVGO writes, hello, John. I hope you're doing well. I am. I recently recently watched Winter Soldier and didn't remember it being that fantastic. I hope Brave New World can bring back that tactical espionage thriller feeling. I still remember. I think the first time I saw it was with Roth Cornett. I think me and Jennings Roth, that's her full name, by the way, Jennings Roth Cornett. We went to go see Winter Soldier. And I still remember walking out of the theater from this press screening we saw And like almost, it was kind of like the same experience I had when I walked out of watching the first Avengers. It was like, what the hell did I just watch? Like, I know they said this is going to be more like a 70s political thriller, but I didn't really buy it that they'd be able to make it feel that way. And like all of us coming out of the theater, we're like looking at each other's like, I can't believe what we just saw. Like that was freaking amazing. And to this day, there are a lot of people out there who feel that Winter Soldier, to many people out there, to them is like the greatest comic book movie of all time. I don't think it's the greatest, but it's in the top 5. And it's just absolutely, it's a remarkable film. Again, like I said on the show the other day, the Russo brothers may have not been doing great. I love Joe and Anthony. I'm always going to cheer for them. I'm very biased for them. They may not have done all that great since leaving Marvel. And Marvel may have had some struggles recently, but man, there's no denying when Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers work together, magic happens. And Winter Soldier was our first real indication of that. All right. Red One Real Talk writes, also, given how we saw more Gen V crossovers in Boys Season 4, do you think Gen V Season 2 might act like a Boys Season 4.5, or will they remain relatively distinct? I think they're going to remain distinct. So just like in Gen V Season 1, where we did get the odd cameo, an appearance of somebody from The Boys, and we saw a couple of moments where people from Gen V showed up in The Boys, I do suspect we're going to see a couple of appearances here and there of Boys characters in Gen V Season 2, but I don't think it's going to be prominent. I don't think it's going to be The Boys Season 4.5. You know what I mean? I believe it will be distinct. It'll be clear how the stories connect, and we'll even see an appearance here and there, but I think overall it's going to remain distinct. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but we'll find out. All right. Thanks for that, Red One. Cookie writes, not long till I see Deadpool and Wolverine in IMAX 3D with my friend, and we're still debating who's Deadpool and who's Wolverine. Oh, you mean between the two of you? Like if one of you were Deadpool and one of you were Wolverine. All I know is that Anne went out. This is how awesome my wife is. I know I brag a lot on my wife. Indulge me. So Anne went out, and I haven't shown them to you yet, and bought us matching Deadpool and Wolverine uniform jackets. I think I'm wearing the Wolverine one. I think Anne got the Deadpool one for herself. Yeah. So I guess in our thing, Anne's going to be Deadpool and I'm Wolverine, but that's a good debate for you guys to have. Have the debate again, actually, after you come out of the movie. And I will show you pictures of the jacket when Anne and I go see the movie, because we're going to dress up to go see it. All right. Next up, Bailey writes, Borderlands comes out in 2 weeks and it feels like no promotion. I need to show Fly Me to the Moon some love. Best rom-com this year. Put it on your radar. I actually ended up quite liking Fly Me to the Moon. I was hoping it was going to be a little bit better, but I thought it was quite good. I quite enjoyed it. As far as Borderlands, I don't know what they're doing. They have done so little marketing on this movie. And frankly, I don't think the marketing they've done has been that good. So number one, they haven't done much marketing. Number two, the marketing they have done hasn't been all that good. And listen, obviously, Cate Blanchett, Jamie Lee Curtis. I love Eli Roth. I don't love every single one of his movies, but I love his approach to movies. I love kind of his like very rebel with a cause kind of approach to making movies. And I was excited when I heard he was going to do Borderlands, but I'm just being honest with you guys. It's hard. I can't be excited for it. I'm interested because it's Eli Roth, and I'm going to give it a shot because it's Eli Roth. And I'm intrigued because you got one of the all-time greatest actresses in the history of the business in Cate Blanchett in it. So you attracted her to be in it, but I don't know, man. Right now, I've got my doubts, dude. I hope it's good though. All right. King Daddy Goat writes, I really do believe Deadpool 3 makes $2 billion. We talked the other day, particularly yesterday on Open Mic yesterday, about how the fact that there were so many people, even months ago, arguing with me when I said Deadpool and Wolverine was going to be a $1 billion film. Like the amount of pushback I got from that was insane. It's like, John, R-rated movies don't make $1 billion. Well, 1 or 2 have. Deadpool 1 and 2 made about 750 million. So why would this one? And again, you've heard me say this before, but just quickly, my argument is, yes, Deadpool 1 and 2 both made around 750, give or take. So it only needs about 250 more million to be $1 billion film. And I would always say, so you don't think that adding Hugh Jackman returning as coming out of retirement as Wolverine after the worldwide success of Logan, that Deadpool is now in the MCU, so it's now connected to the MCU, and Ryan Reynolds today is more popular than he's ever been, and we've had to wait a while for this Deadpool movie. I would say, you don't think those 3 things can equal a meager extra 250 million? Like, really? I think it's an automatic. I mean, as long as the movie doesn't suck, I think it's an automatic that it makes $1 billion. That being said, I hope you're right, King Daddy Goat. I hope you're right. I hope it does make $2 billion. I don't see it happening. Maybe Brendan's giving a more optimistic appraisal. $1 trillion. But I mean, to me, as long as the movie doesn't suck, it's automatically $1 billion. I don't think it makes over 1.5 because still it is an R-rated film, right? It's still an R-rated film, which is going to have an impact, like not as big of an impact as some people think it will, but it will have a negative impact on its box office. But I hope you're right. I hope you're right. And I'm dead wrong. I'll be celebrating if that works out, dude. All right. Damaris Love writes, it will be bigger box office than Joker, probably. Yeah, I agree. See, I can't wait for Joker 2. I cannot wait for it. I don't think the second Joker makes the $1 billion mark because not everyone who saw Joker particularly loved it. I did, but there are a number of people who didn't particularly love Joker. So while the first one made $1 billion, which was awesome, I think this one will be a huge success, but I don't think it'll quite hit $1 billion. I hope it does. I don't think it'll quite get there, but still be a huge success. So yeah, I think Deadpool will make more than Joker 2 does. All right. But they're both going to do great. All right. Mr. Graham sent in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Mr. Graham, who writes, hope all is great. All is great. Thank you. It's not movie related, but I wanted to know if you can recall the exact moment you fell in love with Anne. Hashtag 6 days till we cry watching Deadpool and Wolverine, LOL. In the words of Maximus in Gladiator, that is none of your business. I'm going to keep that a little bit to myself. But I will tell you, there was, after kind of realizing I was falling in love with her, and I told this story I put this story in our vows. We had a beautiful wedding, by the way, but I put this story in my vows because there was a particular day I remember clearly that I woke up and I knew Anne was coming over to see me that day. We were not married yet, obviously. And the thought hit me that made my day good. And then the next thought hit me of, I can't imagine a day that she's not coming over to see me. And I remember clearly that morning when I had this thought process of, oh yeah, Anne's coming over today. Oh, that's so awesome. That makes today a good day. And then thinking about how I can't possibly imagine a day that I'm not going to see her. And clearly there are days I don't see Anne. She's got to travel for work. I got to travel for work, whatever. But I'm just saying, and I remember that day. And that was the day that I knew I was going to marry her. That was the day that I knew I was going to marry her. So I had previously known I'd fallen in love with her. But that was the day that I knew I wanted to marry her. Anyway, sorry, don't mean to bore you with my personal little stories, but yeah, somebody asked. All right. Let's see. Next up. Thank you for that, Mr. Graham. Appreciate that. And thank you for supporting us on that level, dude. We appreciate it. All right. Tom Weinberg writes, what's your excitement level for the Wonder Man show? I love this character in the comics, but I feel like nobody's going to care. I'm not going to lie to you. Right now it's low. It's low because while I have read a few things of Wonder Man, Wonder Man is not one of my core characters. But more importantly than that, the Disney Plus Marvel shows are very iffy to me. Some work out great. WandaVision, Ms. Marvel, awesome. Some are okay. Some are pretty good, like Falcon and Winter Soldier, to me, Loki. Some are abysmal, like Secret Invasion. I didn't end up liking Hawkeye, even though I love Jeremy Renner, love the Hawkeye character. The show didn't work for me, but whatever. So for me, it's really more an issue that I don't have a lot of trust in the shows that they're making for Disney Plus. Now, I am super excited for Agatha. That I'm super stoked for, because I loved the character on WandaVision. I love Catherine Hahn, and I really like the trailer. So for that, I'm very excited. The best thing I'd say, though, is let's ask that question again, Tom, once the first couple of trailers drop. Then we'll get a better sense of what the show is. But right now, I'm just going to be honest. My excitement level is actually a little bit low at the moment. All right. Oh, and somebody's asking, has Wonder Man been officially announced? Dude, they shot it already. They shot the show. It's now filmed. It's filmed and in the can. So yes, it's more than official that the show is coming. They've actually shot the show. All right. Let's see. Where are we at here? Next up, we got Christopher Brickner, who writes, do you think The Acolyte will get a season 2? No, I don't. I don't know that for a fact. It could. It very well could. But my guess is no, they won't. And I know I will not be watching it if they do. Unless they start it up and everybody tells me it's great, then maybe I'll check it out. But I honestly, I do not think they're going to do a season 2 of The Acolyte. All right, next up. Cookie, again, writes in and says, just watched the Hobbit trilogy for the first time. Nice. Now I'm excited to watch Lord of the Rings for the first time. Me also. You know what? Okay, so you've never seen Lord of the Rings. All right. This is actually a fascinating case study. Fascinating case study. And I'll tell you why. Because I said on yesterday's show, somebody brought up The Hobbit yesterday. And I said on yesterday's show that, you know, not making excuses for why people did or did not feel the way they felt about The Hobbit. I didn't love the Hobbit films. I certainly liked a couple of them, but I said it's just the fact that it was such a step down from the original Lord of the Rings films. Like from Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King, the Hobbit films are a significant step down from those films. And I think that's what we all think about. I think it's fascinating that you've now seen The Hobbit before seeing Lord of the Rings, so your opinion and your experience of it isn't clouded or filtered in any way by the fact that you knew how good the Lord of the Rings films are. And apparently you really liked it. That's great. I think that's very, very interesting that having watched the Hobbit films before seeing the Lord of the Rings, you had a really good experience watching it. Most people saw the Lord of the Rings films before the Hobbit. I think that's fascinating. And by the way, you're going to love, there's a reason to a lot of people, the Lord of the Rings films are like the greatest movies ever. You're going to love the Lord of the Rings films. Just going to tell you that. All right. Next up, Cookie again writes, it's my birthday on the 8th of August, so I got the re-release of Spider-Man 2, Borderlands, and Trap. Oh boy, I can't wait. And most people probably will watch Deadpool again. I'll tell you what. First of all, happy birthday in advance. There were a lot of years there where the name M. Night Shyamalan just made people laugh. I'm not exaggerating. Like literally, you bring up M. Night's name and people would just laugh. There were a lot of years. He went from being on the cover of Time magazine, the next Spielberg, which is stupid for them to write. But he went from being considered the hottest thing in Hollywood for a good decade to being an absolute laughingstock. It's really nice to now be in a new era where there's a new M. Night movie coming out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Because his first real return to form was, speaking of Catherine Hahn, that little film he did called The Visit. The Visit was strangely good. I liked The Visit. It was, smaller film, whatever, but I really liked it. And then Split was great. I hated Glass, but Split was great. And then what's that one he just did about, was it called The Beach? Was that it? Guys in the live chat, help me out. What's that one in the beach where they're all aging at these different rates and everything? Old. Was that the name of it? It was called Old? Okay, Old. Right. I didn't think Old was great, but I thought Old was interesting. Anyway, this new one that he's got coming up, Trap. Look, I don't know if the movie's going to be good or bad, but I think it looks great. I think it really looks great. So yes, I'm pretty stoked for Trap. I hope it ends up being good. All right, next up. Raymond Weaver writes, Twisters was such a disappointment. Oh, I'm sorry. I agree with Jen DeBont when he said he didn't like it. I'm sorry you didn't like it. Listen, man, all film is subjective. It hits us all in different ways. I thought Twisters was not just a little, but I thought it was definitively better than the first film. You can't even call it the first film and the second film because Twisters had nothing to do with the first Twister movie. Anyway, I personally had a lot of fun with it. Like, is it going to end up in my top 10 films of the year list? No. But me personally, I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a good, fun little movie. But hey, all films hit us in different ways, and for you, it was a disappointment. That's totally fair. But I just got to tell you that I myself quite enjoyed it, Raymond. All right, next up. Rachel Knight writes, calling it now, Lara is MCU Wolverine. Huh. You know, in all the Russian scurry that many of us have been doing about trying to figure out who the next Wolverine will be for the MCU, the idea that X-23 becomes a new Wolverine, because that is what they do in the comics. To all the hardcore comic purists out there, that's what happened. X-23 became the new Wolverine. Huh. You know what? I'm going to guess not. I could see her crossing over into the MCU. I could see that happening. But Wolverine is like Deadpool says in the trailer, he's the X-Man. He is the single most popular X-Men character historically in the world. So while I could see them bringing her over, I don't think she becomes the new Wolverine. I might be right and I might be wrong, because like I said, they do that in the comics. That's what happens in the comics. She becomes Wolverine in the comics. So it's possible, but I'm gonna guess no, but we'll see. I'll remember you said that though, Rachel. All right. Next up, C Black writes, rumor is Avengers versus X-Men original for Avengers 5. Thoughts? No, I don't buy that for a second. Also, have you seen Feige's comments today? Feige makes comments every day. You're going to have to be a little bit more specific than that. I do not believe for a second that, Avengers 5 is going to be Avengers versus X-Men. I don't believe that at all. That is not something you just throw together. And that movie's supposed to come out soon. And so, yeah, I don't buy it. Again, I'm not claiming knowledge that it's not true. I'm not saying that, hey, I've spoken to somebody at Disney and they assure me that that's not happening. I don't know that. This is just me as a fan giving my opinion. I might be right. I might be wrong. But I don't buy for a second that rumor. Don't buy it at all. Now, maybe they shock the world. Remember, this coming Saturday. And for those of you who don't know, me and Ray are going to be doing a live stream during the Marvel Hall H panel and talking about all the announcements that they make as they come out. So make sure you join us next Saturday for that. But maybe they do Hall H and they bring out the Russo brothers, which we don't know is for a fact, but maybe they bring out the Russo brothers and say, and so for Avengers 5, and then boom, up on the screen, Avengers, then fading out of the black versus, and everybody's going, oh, and then X-Men comes out and everybody will go crazy. Maybe that happens. Just to be clear, be unconventional. John, will you be in Hall H? No, I'm not going to be in San Diego. I'm not going to be there. Ray and I are going to be here in studio following the announcements. We're going to, a couple of our friends who are going to be in Hall H and posting out what every single announcement that gets made in real time. We're going to be here in the studio and talking about each announcement as they get made and giving our thoughts on them. So, but we're not going to be there. We're not going to be there, but that can happen. But in general, C-Black, no, I think that rumor is complete bullshit. I don't buy that for a second, but you never know. All right. Next up, Rodriguez writes, saw Dune 1984 for the first time a few weeks ago. I thought it was interesting while still having some flaws. What's your opinion on the film? I've always felt it was not a great movie to what was a very interesting story. And, you know, having seen Dune 1 and 2, like your imagination goes crazy. How did they tell that whole story in 1 2-hour movie in 1984? By the way, Patrick Stewart's in that movie. He plays the Josh Brolin role, or should I say Josh Brolin plays Patrick Stewart. He plays Gurney. Anyway. Yeah, I've never thought it was all that good, but always knew the underlying story looked awesome. So that's just kind of my take on it. All right. Next. Let's see here. B Dog writes, 1 of 2. Evening, John. I feel as if you're the only one I can go to for mock talk. So how has the season been so far for you? Poor Mike, man. I have no idea what we're talking about. What is, okay, a part 2. Seems it's all coming to a note into point for him. Can't wait to see how it ends. Also, have you seen any presumed innocence? Jake's killing it. Okay, I haven't started watching. I have no idea what show we're talking about. Oh, Mayor of Kingstown. Guys, please, please, please do not write in acronyms. Please do not write in acronyms. Okay, Mayor of Kingstown. I am 2 episodes behind right now on Mayor of Kingstown. I'm 2 episodes behind. So I got up to the episode. Where did I leave off? So Mike went to go visit the mobster. I saw that part where he goes, I'm not the guy you fight against. I'm the guy you work with. I think that was the last episode I saw. So I think I'm 2 episodes behind. Listen, I love this show. Mayor of Kingstown is awesome. If you're not watching it, why? It is worth getting Paramount Plus all on its own. Just for Mayor of Kingstown, it's totally worth it. Jeremy Renner's, I say he's better in this show than he even is as Hawkeye. And I think he's a great Hawkeye. But I think Jeremy Renner is even better in this show than he is as Hawkeye. Go watch it. It's a great show. All right. And start right with season 1. It's incredible. All right. Thanks for that, B-Dog. All right. Next up. Carnell B sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Carnell, for supporting us on that level, dude. Carnell writes, hey, John, there have been subtle design changes to X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Star Destroyers, etc. from the OG trilogy to the sequels, I mean. If Disney rebooted Star Wars today, would they redesign the Millennium Falcon? Would you? Ooh, that's a good question. Here's what I think. I think the comparison, first of all, I don't think they're ever going to reboot Star Wars. You can just move into the future or the back. But if they ever do, it's an interesting question. I think a comparable scenario is Superman. You see, every time they do Superman, the costume looks a little different, right? Every time. Like this side, Henry's costume was different than Brandon Routh's. Brandon Routh's was different than Christopher Reeves. Christopher Reeves is different than Taylor Hoechlin. Is that how you say his last name on Superman and Lois? Taylor Hoechlin's a little bit different than Dean Cain's was. And the new Superman costume is different than any of the rest of them. But they're all clearly the Superman costume, right? They're all clearly the Superman costume. Yeah, they have some little detail differences. By the way, I really like the new David Cornsweet's Superman costume. I think it looks great. I just hate the red underwear. Other than that, I love seeing all the homages to a bunch of the original comic book costumes, especially the S coming straight out of Kingdom Come. But so I personally really like it, except the damn red underwear. Hate the red underwear. Anyway. So I think the same thing would be true of Star Wars if they ever rebooted it. I think the Millennium Falcon would look different, but it would still clearly be the Millennium Falcon. Just like Henry Cavill's Superman costume is so different from Christopher Reeve's Superman costume, but both of them, without blinking an eye, you look at them and go, oh yeah, that's the Superman costume. So yeah, I think X-Wings would look a little different, but on first glance, you'd look at it and go, that's an X-Wing. Yeah, the TIE fighters might look a little different, but on first glance, you wouldn't even need a full second. You'd see and go, that's the TIE fighter, that's a Star Destroyer, that's the Death Star. Each of them would probably look a little bit different, a little bit unique, but still clearly, obviously what they are. Just like the Superman costumes are always a little bit different, a little unique, but clearly obvious what they are. So anyway, that's kind of my take on that. All right. Next up, thanks for that, Carnell, and thanks again for supporting us on that level, man. Really appreciate that. Edgar Navarro writes, wait, Tim Cook didn't tell me I can use my iPad to shoo away flies. So on yesterday's show, Ann called in because I had called her. I had a little fly got in the studio. This is a little fly. And it was just pestering me. And I actually used one of my iPads to swat at it and shoo it out of the room. So that's why iPads. I love the iPad, by the way. I like Android is way better than Siri, than Apple OS or iOS, but I love iPads. I've got two of them. I actually have two. I shouldn't have two, but I have two. I love these things. They're great. And yes, you can even use them to shoo away flies. All right, next up. Stargirl writes, I know it's not going to be one of the big money-making movies of the year, but I'm really fascinated to watch Conclave with Ralph Fiennes. I'll tell you what, it looks like it's basically a murder mystery that happens in the Vatican. I had never heard of the film until they showed us a preview for it at CinemaCon this year, and it looked great. Now, of course, Ralph Fiennes, you guys know I believe that Ralph Fiennes is the single greatest actor on the planet who doesn't have an Oscar. It used to be Gary Oldman, then he got his, and then after Gary Oldman got his Oscar, the next up as the greatest actor on the planet without an Oscar, I think is Ralph Fiennes. Anyway, this movie looks great. And I think you're right. I don't think anybody's going to go see it, Stargirl. I don't think it's going to make a lot of money, but I think it looks awesome, and I cannot wait to watch it. All right, Tacky75 writes, the problem I have with Marvel humor is that sometimes instead of letting it grow organically, it's inserted arbitrarily into dynamic scenes and ruins the emotional impact. But that's true of any movie, right? That's true of any movie. There are times that even in comedies where there's a joke that just naturally happens and is perfectly placed. And then sometimes like one that maybe is dropped in a place that isn't work, but that's going to happen. But here's a great example of where that thing you're describing worked perfectly. In the original Avengers, they're having that big discussion, right? Around that big boardroom table about this major problem that they've got. And then I can't remember the specific line, but somebody says something, and then Captain America, out of nowhere, in this serious scene, and then Captain America goes, I understood that reference. Like, that was a joke that was like dropped right in the middle of an otherwise quite serious scene, but it was awesome, and it was perfect, and it was great. And it just worked. Now, are there times that they do it and it doesn't hit quite as well? Absolutely it does. 100%. You're absolutely right. My contention is that if you take out Thor: Love and Thunder, which went way too far to one side, like they just leaned way too much into the silly on that. And that was Taika Waititi. He just leaned into the wrong lessons that he took away from Thor Ragnarok. Anyway, I think if you took out Thor: Love and Thunder, for the most part, that style of humor, for every one time it doesn't work, it works 5 other times. At least to me, it does. So anyway, that's just me. All right. Next up. Thanks for sharing, Taki. Zachary writes, will you be at San Diego Comic-Con all weekend? I don't know if I'm going at all. Please let us know if there are any particular booths you will be at. You probably mean booths you'll be at so we can stop by and say hi. Right now, as of this moment, I am not planning on going to Comic-Con at this moment. But So Robert Meyer Burnett has a panel. By the way, if you guys are not following this, you should be following it. Robert Meyer Burnett, for the reason we haven't seen him around here in a long time, he's been working on this huge project of his. It's a big audio drama called True Noir. It got some wonderful people in it. He's been working very, very hard on it. And they're doing a panel for it at Comic-Con. Old style audio drama. I think it's awesome. Anyway, now I've hosted panels at Comic-Con many years. And one of the big advantages of being a host of a panel is that Comic-Con gives me 10 to 20, depending on the year, full free passes to give out to friends and family. Now, Rob told Ray that he was going to get us passes for these, but we haven't heard anything from him since. Since he's doing a panel, he said he was going to get us passes to Comic-Con, but we haven't heard anything from him since. Ray wrote to him and said, hey, when can we pick up these passes? And Rob's very busy right now. He's working on this audio drama, hugely busy. He's totally buried right now. I get it. I'm not bagging on Rob, but whether or not we go to Comic-Con will depend if Rob ever gets back to us. He said he was going to get us passes. We'll see if he does. But again, totally get it that he's buried under a lot of stuff. He's working really hard on this thing. He's trying to get his panel ready for Comic-Con, all that kind of stuff. I totally understand. I'm just letting you know the question about whether me and Ray and Ann make an appearance at Comic-Con or not is totally dependent on if Rob gets back to us. So we'll find out. We'll find out. We'll see. But if we do go, it wouldn't be for the whole weekend. It wouldn't be for the whole thing. We'd probably go for a day, maybe two, and all that kind of stuff. Be Unconventional says, John, can you qualify as press? Oh, sure, I could, but I never put in my request for it. Like I'm on Comic-Con's list, but you got to request it. And at the time when the deadline came up, which is a while ago, we didn't think we were interested in going. So we never applied for any of our press credentials, which they give me every year if I ask for them. So we never asked, but because we weren't planning on going, but we'll go for a day or two, but it would probably only be for a day or two if it happens. All right. Next up, we've got Daniel Rahimi writes, I think the correct title should be, do trailers show too much? Well, no, that's a different question. Yes, they do. No need for another trailer for the movie releasing in a week, let alone showing X-23. The Logan people were going to show up regardless. Okay, Daniel, here's the thing, my friend. You're wrong. And there are marketing companies that have spent hundreds of millions of dollars in data-driven scientific studies to know where to put their money and why they do it. I remember this whole question came up, it comes up all the time. But like, there are some people who straight up believe, like Endgame, like when Endgame was coming out, there are people who straight up believe Endgame doesn't need to have any trailers. Here's the thing. For the people, Daniel, in our very small bubbles, like we sometimes forget that those of us who do shows like the John Campea Show and folks like you who watch shows like mine and others, we are actually a very small bubble. But within our bubble, we become a little bit of an echo chamber sometimes. And it's like, yeah, everybody I know is going to go see Deadpool no matter what. But we are a small bubble compared to the larger movie-going audience. We are a small bubble, and we forget this a lot, compared to the larger movie-going audience. There's a reason why Endgame is the second biggest box office grossing movie of all time. It's because they spent the most money on marketing than they spent on any other movie. They spent over $200 million on the marketing of Endgame. They spent more money on the marketing of Endgame than a lot of movies even cost to produce. Because they know through hundreds of millions of dollars worth of data and research that they've done over the course of decades and decades, that for every $1 they spent on marketing, they would get X amount of dollars in box office return. And the result? And there are people saying, Endgame would have made $2.8 billion. No, it wouldn't have. No, it wouldn't have. Because people who have spent their lives studying this stuff say it wouldn't have. You think marketing companies, studios want to spend money just for nothing if they didn't need to? Of course they do. So while you and I, Daniel, for sure you and I, we were going to go see this movie, regardless if X-23 was in it. But there are people who really like Logan that maybe haven't been all that interested in comic book movies the last 5 or 6 or 7 years. What year did Logan come out, by the way? I want to say 2017? Am I wrong? Guys, let me, wait, I'm terrible at dates. Absolutely terrible at dates. What was the year that Logan came out? It was 2017. Okay. So like, there are a lot of people who saw and maybe even really liked and appreciated Logan, got nominated, first comic book movie in history, been nominated for Best Screenplay at the Academy Awards, that maybe got a little disillusioned with movies over the comic book movies the last little while, with them being so mediocre. But seeing X-23 in there, if you don't think that's going to motivate some people who are on the fence about going to see Deadpool, you're wrong. It is. Maybe not in the circles you and I travel in. Like, you and I were sold on it already, right? You and me, like, we were going to be sitting there in the theater side by side no matter what. But yeah, it is going to make a difference. And here's the thing about the Deadpool trailers too. 90% of all the Deadpool footage that has been in all the marketing has been the same 1 minute of stuff. Have you guys noticed that? Like, there was that one Spider-Man movie. I can't remember if it was No Way Home, or I think it might have been Spider-Man. Might have been Spider-Man Far From Home. Maybe that was it. But there was one of the recent Spider-Man movies where somebody took the time and gathered all the TV spots and all the trailers and all the internet spots and everything. And they calculated that altogether, there was like 30 minutes of footage from the movie in all the collective trailers and TV spots. Like, there's 30 seconds of it here, 10 unique seconds over here, 40 unique seconds over here. And they added it all up. And it came out, I can't remember which one of the Spider-Man movies too it was, but they added it all up, and like over 30 minutes of the movie's footage was in the trailers. Deadpool and Wolverine, on the other hand, I feel like 90% of all the trailer footage, of all the TV spot footage, of all the internet spots, 90% of it is from that same 1 minute of footage, just recut and edited in different ways. So, yeah, I really don't think they've been showing much at all. But it's always the hardcore fans. It's always the hardcore fans that are like, you don't need to show anything in trailers. But you know what? To the vast majority of the average movie-going audience, that different elements and different things are going to be the determining factor to decide if they will or will not go out to see that movie. There's a lot of that in there, and that goes into the marketing. So yes, sometimes trailers do show much for people like you and me, because you and me are in this club together. But for a lot of the average fans out there, that's not the case. For a lot of the average fans out there, this thing in this one trailer might be the determining factor, or that thing in that other trailer might be the determining factor. So can they sometimes show too much? 100%, Daniel. I'm absolutely in there with you. But like, we got to understand there's still a lot of people out there who are average movie going fans that different things in different trailers are going to be motivating for them, and they do that. So it's fine. Anyway, thanks for sharing, Daniel. Next up, Miguel Zayan writes, which one do you think is more likely, Avengers 5 to be Secret Wars Part 1 or Avengers vs. X-Men? I think they scrapped Kang, but what would be a big enough replacement to be the main theme or conflict? It could be anything, honestly. Like, here's the thing. I really feel like the end of Loki Season 2 really ends the Kang thing perfectly. Loki Season 2 ends with the TVA creating a division that all they're now doing is just going around and cleaning up and capturing the remaining Kang variants. They kind of put a button on the Kang storyline, really. So I think they're totally fine to ditch the whole Kang thing. But I don't think it's going to be X-Men and Wolverine. But I also don't necessarily think it's going to be Secret Wars Part 1. Like, the great thing about Infinity War and Endgame is that they are not Part 1 and Part 2. They are two distinct stories. They all happen in the life of the Avengers, moving from one place in their existence to the next, but so did Avengers 1 to Avengers 2, and Avengers 2 to Avengers 3, and Avengers 3 into Avengers 4. Infinity War is its own standalone movie that just happens to end with the bad guy winning. Endgame is the next Avengers movie, but it's its own movie. And I think Avengers 5 and 6 will be the same in that way, but I think there's still going to be distinct. They're going to be connected, but distinct. Again, that's just a guess. That's just a guess, but we'll see what happens. All right. Thanks for that, Miguel. Next up, we got Dwayne who writes, for the Deadpool trailer, do you think the marketing agency has some projection indicating including X-23 will get more tickets? 1,000%. That's why they spend the money. Only reason I ask is because if you had the exact same trailer without X-23, people that loved Logan would still be sold on the movie, in my opinion. I don't think it spoils, but just curious as to why they chose her versus more popular X-Men. I think because specifically they were going after fans of Logan, the Logan movie, right? Because right now, everything we've seen from the trailers has not really been the Logan Wolverine. It's been the X-Men Wolverine, really. And I think for a lot of average film goers out there who happen to love Logan, again, we in our bubble, we think that means everybody. It's not. But I think that they did a lot of studies and a lot of focus groups, and they realized that, yeah, if we put Daphne Keane in this, it's going to motivate a percentage of people who might be on the fence about coming to see this, who may not have gone to see the other Deadpool movies that might now be motivated to come see this. 100%. Listen, they spend tens and hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing. And they're very greedy. These studio corporations are incredibly greedy. So they don't want to spend money where they don't have to. They want to keep all the money for themselves that they can. So you got to know that if they do spend money on something, it's because they believe spending that money is going to make them money. And so, yeah, they absolutely focused up and did a study to figure out, should we put X-23 in the trailer? And obviously the response came back to them, yes, because they believe that this will be the deciding factor for a percentage of people out there to come out and see Deadpool. And I don't think they're wrong. I think they're right. All right. Next up, we've got Wesley Cunningham, who writes, the way I see it, it's kind of in between. Can't call it a spoiler if the studio allowed you to see it, but there is a point when people start saying they don't want to see anymore. But again, that's only fans following all news, not the average audience still deciding whether or not to see it. It's tricky. I mean, marketing and trailers have always had a very precarious balance ahead. Now, I did a documentary on trailers called Movie Trailers, A Love Story. Go and find it on Amazon Prime today. And I sat down with the heads of one of the preeminent trailer companies in the movie business. And one of the things the main guy said was that it's always a very precarious situation because we have a job to sell the movie, which means we got to show things that are going to excite people to want to come out to the movie. But at the same time, the dance goes, the balancing act goes, you don't want to show too much. So we have a mandate, movie trailers have a mandate to show things that will excite the audience and get them to want to come out to a movie. And we as fans have to understand that the things that excite us may not be the things that excite other people, and other people may need to see other things, regardless. So they've always had this very precarious place that they're in about which things can we show that will excite the audience and make them buy tickets without necessarily showing too much. I'll give you an example. For some stupid reason, Warner Brothers decided when Justice League was first coming out in theaters to not show that Superman was in the movie. That was idiotic. Yes, I understood the foundational reasoning of, we want that to be a surprise. Okay, I get that. That's fair enough. You wanted to keep it a surprise. But this is still a business. And you need to sell this movie. And you need to, anybody, it doesn't matter if they think Superman's it, they're going to come see it. No, apparently not. And so what happened was, if you guys remember, there was very slow ticket sales. They were not selling tickets at the rate they thought they were going to sell. And so 1 week, even the poster didn't have Superman in it. So then 1 week before the movie came out, then they started throwing Superman into the trailers. They started throwing Superman in there to try, but it was a little bit too little too late. So again, that's a part of the balancing act that, yeah, there are going to be things you want to keep a surprise, but there are also elements you got to put in there to sell it to the audience, to motivate them to buy that movie ticket. So it's always going to be a very precarious balancing act. But again, to me, once they do put it in a trailer, whether they should have put it in the trailer or not is irrelevant. Once it is in the trailer, it's no longer a spoiler, it's no longer speculation, and it's no longer rumor. It is now news. Once a studio puts something in a trailer and announces globally and publicly to the world that this thing is in our movie, this person is in our movie, whatever, it's no longer a spoiler or rumor or speculation. It is now officially news. And once something is news, whether it should have become news or not in the first place is now irrelevant. It is now news. Then blogs, news outlets, podcasts, and YouTube channels have to be free to openly discuss them, put them in the titles of their stories, put them in their thumbnails. Otherwise, they never should have let the world know that, should we not have reported that Pedro Pascal, should we not have done a video that Pedro Pascal has been cast as Reed Richards and put that in a thumbnail and put that in a title? John, I didn't want to know anything about Fantastic Four until I go in to see it, and I excluded people who were playing the roles I didn't want to know. Well, then that's on you. But anyway, yeah, it's always part of the precarious dance. And again, let me emphasize this. The biggest complication about this whole spoilers discussion is that everybody has a different definition of what a spoiler is. The fandom has never come to one agreed upon definition for what a spoiler is. That's the problem. And as long as the fandom all have different ideas about what is and isn't a spoiler, it's always going to be a problem. Always will be, Wesley. All right, thanks for that, dude. Next up, Christopher Brickner writes, cool how Deadpool and Wolverine is a Logan sequel. I don't know that it is. Just because you're going to have elements from Logan in there, I don't think that necessarily makes it a Logan sequel. This is clearly more Deadpool's movie than it is Logan's movie. So I don't think that this is a Logan sequel. But who knows? Maybe we'll watch the film and have a totally different idea. Christopher also writes, Twisters blew past box office expectations. Again, man, originally projected for $40 to $45 million opening, which by itself would have been a big win for them. A $40 to $45 million opening for Twisters would have been considered a big win. It made 80, nearly double the projections. Insane. Super happy for them because I think it's a really fun little movie. All right. Wade's Way writes, in my opinion, I think only around about 30% of trailers overall are considered spoilers because most of the time they contain footage we either already know or knew about. But here's the thing, Wade. Here's the thing. Look at what you just said. Most of the time, they contain footage we either already know and or knew about. At some point, you didn't know. At some point, you found out about a piece of information that now you know about. So every piece of information, to kind of quote the last Deadpool trailer, you were always the wrong guy. Or how is it? Yeah, you were always the wrong guy until you weren't, right? Every piece of information is something you don't know about until you do, right? Okay. You didn't know Hulk was going to be in Thor Ragnarok, but then you found out. You didn't know that Daphne Keane was going to be in this movie, and now you do. Every piece of information used to be something you didn't know, but at some point you had to find out. So I don't know that defines what is and what is not a spoiler. Because now if the next trailer puts Daphne Keane, if they put out another internet spot with Daphne Keane in it, it's no longer a spoiler to anybody because now it's something we know. But everything is something you didn't know. Every piece of information about every movie was at one point something you didn't know. But anyway, I see what you're saying there, Wade, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, man. All right. Logan Vaughn sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Logan. Appreciate that. And Logan writes, I hope we get a sequel to Twisters. What a blast. I love the Spielberg vibes. By the way, Spielberg was an executive producer on it. How much he was actually involved in the film, I don't know. But what would they call it? Twisters 2 or Twister 3? Maybe The Twister? Okay, so if they did a sequel for it, I think it's called Twisters 2. Because again, Twisters I saw the movie. It had absolutely nothing to do with the original film, like at all, other than the fact that there were tornadoes in it. I think they call it Twisters 2, but I'm going to say this. As much fun as I had with Twisters, I had a good time with it. I enjoyed the movie. It gets a thumbs up from me. I had fun. What's a trailer do? Sorry, trailer. What does a sequel do? There's more tornadoes. Does a tornado gain sentience? And have you been, I am the tornado. And now it's spawning other tornadoes. And now they go, oh no, we have to fight the master tornado. What do you do in a Tornadoes sequel or a Twisters sequel that isn't just what you already did in this movie? King Daddy Goat's got the answer. Tornadoes in space, John. Tornadoes in space. Again, I had fun with it. And if this movie goes on to make like $400 million, they're going to be tempted to make a sequel. But as much as I like the film, I don't think you do a sequel to this one. I really don't. But you never know, Logan. You never know. All right. Thanks for sending that in, dude. And thank you for supporting us on that level. All right. Only Giovanni all the time writes, do you think do you think there will be Deadpool spoilers at the Marvel presentation at Comic-Con? Interesting timing. Well, I mean, I don't know. At that point, the movie will have already been in theaters 3 days because it's coming out on Thursday. Then it's out in theaters Friday. Then a bunch of people can see it Saturday. So by the time Saturday night comes around and they do the panel, the movie's been out for 3 days. So I don't really know what there is. No, I don't think they're going to talk specifically about spoilers, but let's be honest here. By Saturday, everybody's going to know everything about that happens in the movie. It's just going to be inevitable. But no, I don't think they're going to talk about specific spoiler points in that presentation, even though the movie's already going to be in theaters like 3 times that day. Great username, by the way, Only Giovanni. I like that. For those of you who don't know, my real name is Giovanni. That's why he wrote that in. All right. Next up, Roland24 writes, do the people that find trailers to be spoilers ever go to the movies anyway? I don't know. It's a good question. Look, see, this is different from, say, when a trailer literally shows you the whole movie and even how it ends. Like, there was that one movie, I think it was Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey. And I talked about this trailer and again, my documentary, Movie Trailers, A Love Story. You should go check it out today. There was a little movie called The Negotiator with Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey. Came out years and years and years ago. Actually, it's quite a good little movie. I like the movie. It's pretty good. But the trailer for that movie literally step by step takes you through all 3 acts of the movie, ultimately to how it ends. Like it literally showed you the whole movie. Because in the movie, right, the idea is Samuel Jackson used to be a negotiator. An injustice has happened and he can't get anybody to listen to him. So he takes hostages in this place and demands a particular police negotiator that he thinks is good. And so Kevin Spacey is the police negotiator. And he comes in to negotiate with Kevin Spacey, right? And they take you through all of this. And the trailer even shows you at the end, Kevin Spacey side by side with Nick Fury, with Samuel L. Jackson on the walkie-talkie going, now you have to deal with both of us. And it's like, you just gave everything. You just gave the whole movie away. So yeah, there are times when movies show you, give the movie away. But I think that's different from showing that, oh, this person appears in the movie. I think that's a little bit different. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, guys, seriously, go on YouTube. And it's too bad because Negotiator is actually quite a good movie. But if you want to see the whole movie, go on YouTube, search for Negotiator trailer, watch the trailer, and you will have basically seen the whole movie. All right. Next up, Wade's Way writes, one film that is easily in my top 10 most anticipated films this year still is Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. Bill Skarsgård is obviously going to nail it. I'll tell you what, man, I'm excited for that movie. I love Robert Eggers. Love him. The Witch. I don't know why some people didn't like The Witch. I think The Witch is awesome. The Northman. I loved The Northman. Love that movie. And Lighthouse, I still don't know what the hell that movie was, but it's certainly an experience. By the way, Josh sent in a super chat badge to be supportive. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that, man, very much. Yeah, so this Nosferatu thing, I cannot wait to watch it. I love this director. He's such a unique storyteller he might be the most unique storyteller in the business right now. So maybe I'll watch it. I won't know what the hell I'm watching, like The Lighthouse, but I'm super looking forward to this movie. All right, one more question, then we're going to take another quick break, guys. This one comes to us from Suthius, who writes, did you ever watch the entire series of Stargate SG-1? I'll be honest, I don't know if I saw the whole thing or not. I think I did. Anyway, while I enjoyed it as a whole, didn't like season 9 and 10 much when O'Neill was no longer lead. Yeah, see, that I kind of fell off the show a little. Although I think I still saw the rest of them. Anyway, I kind of fell off the show a little bit when the main lead character mostly left the show. What's the actor's name, guys? The guy who played O'Neill. He was also the original MacGyver. Anybody in the live chat who knows the name of the actor, please write it in there because I'm freezing on his name right now. Anyway, so when the main character, Richard Dean Anderson, thank you. Niles was the first one to get that fired. Richard Dean Anderson. So Richard Dean Anderson was like the lead guy on the show. And when he left the show, he didn't completely leave. Like he became the general, so he would still pop up now and again. But I kind of fell off the show too. I did watch the subsequent movies they did and stuff like that. I just think, honestly, I think Stargate SG-1 was a great show. I really do. I thought the original movie was a lot of fun. And I thought the show was really good. And if they ever decide to reboot it, I'm all for it. Either as a show or a movie, I'd be all for it. All right, guys, listen, we still got a few more questions to get to, but before we get to those, we're going to take another quick moment here and thank another sponsor of our show today, our good friends, giving you all the hydration you need, the good folks over at Liquid IV. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, Liquid IV. You know, the Summer Olympics are here. I cannot wait for basketball, track and field. Hell, they've even got breakdancing in France this year. And with the Summer Olympics in full swing, hydration is key for athletes and fans. Liquid IV is extraordinary hydration for physical endurance, mental clarity, and overall well-being. A single stick of Liquid IV delivers better hydration than water alone with 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 vitamins and nutrients. One of the things I love about Liquid IV is how easy it is for me to prepare. All I have to do is tear, pour, and enjoy. In the heat of the summer, whether you're out golfing, out walking, or just sitting on the back patio, you need to stay hydrated, and that's where Liquid IV comes in clutch. Liquid IV is the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, and it comes in 4 delicious sugar-free flavors: white peach, green grape, raspberry melon, and lemon lime. So turn your ordinary water into extraordinary hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code CAMPEA at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code CAMPEA at liquidiv.com. And thank you to our friends at Liquid IV for sponsoring the John Campea Show. All right, guys. With that down, let's get over to the last batch of questions you guys sent in, shall we? We'll get things picked up here with David Gonzalez, who writes, just wanted to say thanks for the shows. Thank you, man. I watch live during my workday. Not only breaks up the monotony, but helps sparks the love for all types of cinema. Looking forward to Monday's show. Oh, thank you so much, man. You know what? Listen, I think the highest compliment that guys like me who do these types of shows can get is for somebody to say, watching your show increases my excitement for movies. That is the highest bit of praise I think anybody like myself or Greg Alba or a Dan Murrell or a Christian Harloff or whatever can possibly get from somebody. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for supporting us, and thank you for the kind words, man. I appreciate that. All right, next up, Mickey Veach writes, I still think about the time Terminator Genesis, or as the great John Schnepp used to call it, Terminator Genesis, spoiled the twist about John Connor being the secret villain. Even the actors came out and protested that. I thought that was an odd choice. Because listen, it's one thing to me to reveal somebody's in the movie. That's fine. I have no problem with that. I don't necessarily think that's very spoilerish. But to reveal a very specific and a very important plot twist, like actually revealing a major plot twist, that fundamentally changes the way you're watching the movie from when the movie starts till whenever that plot twist happens. So that was a very odd decision. I mean, again, it got some people excited in the movie. It got a lot of average film fans going, wait, John Connor is himself a Terminator? I mean, I guess it worked to a degree on some people. But yeah, straight up revealing a huge plot twist that would have been a major mystery in the film leading up to that point, that definitively alters your viewing experience of the other things that are happening in the movie up until that point. That was a very strange decision. Again, it's much like the Negotiator trailer when Kevin Spacey goes, now you have to deal with both of us. That you just revealed a major turn in the plot, and that was very, very odd. All right. Next up, thanks for sharing that, Mickey. Turbo writes, if one wants to argue it that far, you could say a movie title is a spoiler. Director, cast, etc. It's an argument that can be boiled down indefinitely. 100%. And that's why I was saying Turbo, because you clearly get it. The reason the issues of spoilers is always going to be a very, very tricky one for movie fans to navigate is because nobody has the same definition. To some people, knowing X-23 is in the movie, not really a big deal. That's not really a spoiler. We know someone's in the movie. Okay. We already knew a lot of people were in the movie. Like when they announced that showing Morena Baccarin is returning, is that a spoiler? And again, we are even inconsistent with ourselves because the exact same thing happened in the first trailer. They showed that Pyro was back. The original Pyro from X-Men is back. He says, oh God, I love this part. That's Pyro. Nobody cried that was a spoiler. And yet it is the exact same thing as this trailer showing that at some point X-23 shows up. Nobody was screaming spoiler when they showed that Tyler Mane's Sabretooth from the original X-Men film was in it. I didn't hear anybody yell spoiler. But it is no different than them showing that X-23 pops up in it. So everybody has a different definition of what's a spoiler, and then each individual person is very inconsistent with their own definitions. I include myself in that. We're a very complicated bunch, us movie fans. A very complicated bunch. And that's why this whole issue and controversy about spoilers is never going to stop. Because we as movie fans will never have the same definition about what a spoiler is or isn't. It's always going to be tricky. All right. Next up. Thanks for that, Turbo. Logan Vaughn sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Logan, for sponsoring us and supporting us on that level. Appreciate that, man. He writes, the spoiler in trailer comment is another take on that showed me the whole movie comment. I think there's a line where some trailers show too much. I agree. People use the term spoiler when they try to verbalize this opinion. But I think, Logan, there's a distinction. Like, to me, when you're saying a trailer showed too much, to me, like, if I were to say that, what I would be meaning would be something like the Negotiator trailer, where it's like, you just showed us the totality of the movie in 1 2.5 minute. Like, you just gave us the Coles notes. What do you Americans call it here? Like in Canada, when we have these books that gives you like a brief summary of a larger work, it's called the Coles notes. I think you guys in the States call it something else. Is it Cliff Notes? Is that what you guys in the States call them? Cliff Notes? In Canada, they call it the Coles notes. Okay, yeah, Jake Knight just said, or Niles was the first one to put it in, said Cliff Notes. Okay. So when a trailer is basically the Cliff Notes of the entire movie. Now, I'm not talking about tell us what the movie's about. I think every trailer should tell us basically what is this movie about. That's different than us giving, here's what happens in Act 1, here's what happens in Act 2, and here's how it ends in Act 3. You just basically showed us the whole movie in a quick cliff note. I agree. But little details, like Pyro is in the movie. What? I don't know that that's showing us too much, especially in a marketing campaign like Deadpool's, where 90%, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, 90% of the marketing of Deadpool and Wolverine has been the same 1 minute of footage, just edited up and chopped up and put in different orders. Like, they've really not showed us much of this movie at all. Every single trailer has had the giant Ant-Man head. Every single trailer has had Deadpool and Wolverine in that car. Every single trailer feels like has Cassandra Cain doing the root with Wolverine. Like, every single one of the trailers has shown a shot of his birthday party. Every single, like, 90% of everything we have seen in all the marketing has been the same 1 minute of footage chopped up in different ways. And that's how it feels like. So I really don't think this one showed too much. But again, to me, showing an appearance in the movie, Logan, is not the same as showed us too much. Showing me too much means you just basically told me how this whole movie plays out. And I don't think the Deadpool trailers have done that. I think it does happen sometimes. 100% it does, but I don't think it's happened here. All right. Thanks for sharing, Logan. And again, Logan, thank you so much for supporting us on that level. Appreciate that. All right. Next up. Tommy McLuth writes, happy birthday. Okay. Logan Vaughn writes, I don't think revealing X-23 is a spoiler, though. There's a difference in revealing a character's presence and revealing final plot elements. I agree with that. Revealing a character's presence and a character shows up here and there. I found out that Dirk Benedict showed up in that A-Team movie. And that didn't give away anything about the plot. It didn't give anything away about the overall direction or any of the twists that happen in the movie. Just like finding out Pyro is there doesn't really reveal any of the overall narrative shifts in the movie. Seeing that Tyler Maine's Sabretooth isn't in any shift in the movie, any of that stuff, right? And I don't think X-23 does either. I think it's just a bigger deal to some people because some people care more about X-23 but the principle's the same. So I agree with you, man. I don't think it means much. All right. Thanks for that, Logan. Next up, Mike's Movie Madness writes, I don't consider it a spoiler, but when trailers include third act footage, I subconsciously remember it when I'm watching the movie. So in a way, I can guess what's about to happen. That's a trick. You're right, but it's also a tricky part. It's also tricky because I have seen a lot of footage from third acts of movies in a trailer that I didn't have any idea was from a third act of the film. Sometimes, like I'll keep going back to that negotiator example. Now you got to deal with two of us. Well, that clearly is from the third act of the film. That's clearly revealing a major twist that happens in the movie. And now we all know where this is going. But a lot of times there's footage from a third act of the film. Now, yes, there have been times that I've been in a movie and I've thought about something in the trailer that goes, well, that hasn't happened yet, so I guess it's going to come up. But really, it doesn't really spoil anything. Like, as long as the footage is innocuous enough, like a random action scene, right? Okay, as long as it's innocuous enough that doesn't give me any indication about the overall story direction, then I think I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay with that. All right, let's see. Julius Wyatt writes, shout out when they showed Tom Hanks survived in Castaway. Yes, see, that's another example. The trailer, like the whole movie about Castaway, is Tom Hanks ends up stranded on this island for clearly a long time because he's all skin and bones and has a huge beard and he's talking to a volleyball. The trailers literally show you him getting off the island. It literally shows you him getting off the island. Like, they literally gave the entire ending of the movie away. Now, the good thing, of course, is that the movie's fantastic. Like, the movie's fantastic, so we don't even think about the trailer anymore. But literally, the trailers of that movie literally gave away the ending. Don't worry, everybody. He gets off the island. And he has this big... And they showed you a number of things of him at the end of the film. That, as we were just discussing, is totally an example of when they showed us too much. When they showed us way too much. All right. Next up, Logan Vaughn writes in again. Several months ago, you said that if Taylor Swift was in the movie, they would absolutely use her in the marketing. That's what I believed, 100%. But so far, nothing. Do you think she'll still show up in the movie somehow? I do still think she'll show up in the movie. I mean, obviously, I don't know that. That's just me as a fan speculating, just like everybody else. Could be right, could be wrong, just guess. But yeah, I 100% believed that if Taylor Swift was in the movie, and maybe she's not, that if Taylor Swift is in the movie, they would definitely put it in the marketing. Well, we are now 4 days. Well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 4 days. Holy shit. We are 4 days away from Deadpool and Wolverine. Okay. So we are now 4 days away from Deadpool and Wolverine. And so far, no sign of Taylor Swift in the trailers. Unless she's Lady Deadpool, which I don't think she is. I think that's Blake Lively. Anyway. So look, I still think she's in it. My guess is she's still going to appear. Like as a quick little thing, not an important role, like some quick little thing. But I thought that if she was in the movie, they would include it in the marketing, and they haven't. So maybe that means she's not in it. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out if I was right or not. All right. Next up, we got Reverend writes, I'm so excited for Deadpool and Wolverine that I may camp out outside of the theater the night before. By the way, I enjoyed that you talked about the last Deadpool and Wolverine trailer on Friday. Well, thank you for that. Listen, I'll tell you what. The life of being a moviegoer is so much better now that we have the ability to buy our tickets in advance and have pre-assigned seating. The life of a movie fan is so much better now than it was in the frickin' dark ages. And yes, it was the dark ages that we had no idea where we were going to sit in a theater. You had to hope that you didn't get stuck with a front row seat. or something like that. And that to avoid getting a front row neckbreaker seat, I remember having, literally going to the movie theater 2 to 3 hours before the movie started to stand in line. Sometimes outside in bad weather. Being Canadian, sometimes outside in the winter. Because, you're excited about this movie. You don't want to get a bad seat. So I got to stand out here for 3 hours. Oh, yay, movies. Dark Ages. Dark Ages. So it's so much better now. But I do confess, there is something romantic about remembering those days when, like, I remember when The Force Awakens was coming out. And it wasn't even for the movie. It was just for when tickets were going to go on sale. Me and a friends took little tents and set up tents and camped in front of the movie theater 3 days before the tickets went on sale. Because back then you couldn't buy them online in advance. You literally had to be at the box office and buy your tickets at the box office. But we went to the movie theater to get in line 3 days, and we weren't even at the front of the line. By the time we got there 3 days in advance, there was already like 40 people camped out in front of us. And by the time it was the day before, hundreds of people were camped out on that sidewalk. Hundreds. And it went back a long way. There is something romantic about that. There is. But overall, would I want us to go back to that time where we were literally forced to have to stand in line like animals and wait in line for like hours just to get a ticket and hopefully get in and get a half decent seat? No, I would never want to go back to that. I would never want to go back to that. All right. Next up, we've got, thanks for that, Reverend. We got JT Hiskey, who writes, "Hey, John, I'm thinking of going to USC for FX and animation. Nice. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this kind of schooling is worth it? Thank you." 100%. 100%. Look, going back over my time of running AMC and running Collider and all that kind of stuff, whenever I would be interviewing people or looking at, sometimes we would advertise a job spot. And I still remember this one time we advertised this one gig and we literally had over 700 applicants. Let me repeat. We had over 700 applicants for this one job we had available when I was at AMC. And one of the things that I would look for when determining about who to bring in for an interview, quite often, if you had a journalism degree or you had a degree in some kind of field like that, all other things being equal, like if you had the same kind of experience as another person and the same kind of upside as another person, but you had a journalism degree and the other didn't, I would pick the person with the journalism degree to come in and have an interview. Actually, help me out, guys. I feel horrible because I like her very much, but I'm freezing on her name. Back in the AMC and Collider heyday, we had 3 primary hosts. Remember, we had Ashley Mova, we had Sinead DeFries, and we had, was it Natasha? Guys in the live chat, help me. I think it was Natasha. Anyway, let me know if that's, I think that was her name. And I feel bad. Bobby is saying, yes, it was Natasha. Okay. Yeah. Natasha Martinez. Thank you, Drew. Natasha was great, right? Natasha was wonderful. But when I was hiring for her role, it was down between her and 2 other people. And they were pretty much equal. They both had some television journalism experience. They both had some online experience. They both did fantastic. I saw video clips of all of them. They were all fantastic. But the difference is that Natasha had I believe it was a USC journalism degree. And since all other things were equal, I was like, I'm going to go with the person with the degree. Now, maybe not everybody will approach it the same way I do, but Yeah, if you want to get into VFX and animation and a prestigious film school like UFC or a USC, I said UFC, learn how to do arm bars and how to do rotoscoping. But they have a prestigious film school at USC. And if you want to get started, that is the place to go, man. That's the place to go. So yeah, I personally don't take this as career advice, but if you're asking me, do I personally think that's a good idea? I personally think that's a fantastic idea. I really do. Plus it's where Anne is getting her doctorate right now. Anne's getting her doctorate at the moment. Most of you know that already. All right. Next up, just a couple questions left here. DJ Gaming writes, do you think we get an Avengers Endgame battle at the end of The Boys? I like the idea, but the budget might be too much. Well, the problem is you only have so many characters, right? Like right now, The Boys and everybody on their side is Butcher and Huey and Starlight and maybe A-Train, maybe a now souped up Ashley. But then and Kimiko, but then you got like all human level characters. Like I said, like Huey, Frenchie, MM. So I don't think narratively there's a big Endgame style battle of 100 on this side and 100 on that side. I don't think they have the numbers. I don't think it's a budget issue. I think it's a storytelling issue. So I'm going to guess probably not, but we'll see. All right. Next up, Noah writes, hey, John, what are your thoughts on the Maze Runner being rebooted? Oh, I didn't even hear it was being rebooted. I think it's too early, but also unnecessary. While I don't love the trilogy, it's still a solid, fun adventure. Listen, I didn't particularly care for the sequels, but I actually thought the first Maze Runner was actually pretty good. I was very pleasantly surprised by it because I thought it was going to be awful. I'll be honest. I thought it was going to be terrible. And I thought the first one was pretty good. It does seem a little early to reboot it if they are. Like, I don't know if you're asking me in theory doing a reboot, but if they've announced they're doing a reboot, I haven't seen that yet. But if they are, personally, I think it's a little bit early. But maybe they've got a new idea for it. Maybe they got a new twist of it. I mean, man, they rebooted Spider-Man awfully quick. 3 times in like just a handful of years they rebooted Spider-Man. So who knows? Maybe it'll work. We'll see. But again, I like the first one, Noah, so we'll see. All right, next up, James Wheeler writes and tips in a $20 super chat. Thank you, James. Appreciate that so much, man. And James writes, hello, John. Did you know Bill Paxton's son is in Twisters? He plays the complaining customer at the motel. That was Bill Paxton's son? I wish I knew that watching the movie, man. I wish I knew that watching the movie. Oh, Amusha saying, love from London, Ontario. I love London. Thank you for writing in. I love that town. Great little university town. Thanks for writing that in. I had no idea that was Bill Paxton's son. Now I want to go back and watch it again just so I can see that scene. He was actually he's kind of great in that, by the way. That's just a quick little scene, but he's actually really great in that little scene. God, I wish I knew that was him. I wish I knew that was him. Thanks for letting me know, James. Now I'm going to definitely keep my eyes open for that next time I go in to watch it for a second time. All right, our final question of the day comes to us from Rodriguez, who writes, spoiler, Deadpool, not an actual pool. And that's a good one for us to end on. Guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show's Open Mic here on this Sunday. Thank you so much for being here and making our little stream a part of your day. Hey, big special thank you to all you guys who sent in the questions. Number one, because you gave us really fun, interesting things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And everybody involved with the channel, thanks you guys so very much for your support. The show will be back again tomorrow. We got a number of things that we're going to be talking about, including the huge success of Twisters and a couple of other things we got lined up too. Hopefully you guys will be back and join us again tomorrow. So that'll do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Let's go watch House of the Dragon now. It starts in 26 minutes. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.